Hi, I'm Dani Gasparini. Welcome to this segment of Penn Voice. I am joined today by Purvi Shah, who is the founder and executive director of Kids and Art Foundation. You have a very unique organization. Tell us a little bit about Kids and Art Foundation, what your focus is, and how you came to found the organization.
So Kids and Art primarily focuses on teaming up children who are going through cancer with artists. And together we get them to create art that, you know, sometimes stays beyond the kids, because we have a lot of children that start with us when they're in treatment, and then we work with them while they're in their process of healing. And then we also work with families who are in hospice and as well as bereavement. So that's how we work with all the children throughout their treatment life cycle.
And how did you come to found an organization like this?
It's a personal story. My son was diagnosed with cancer when he was 3 in 2005, and my background is in graphic design. And, you know, I quit my job and became a full-time caregiver, and I felt like there was something missing, because we were just suddenly taken out of our reality and just in this hospital setting where everything was just so much not in our control. And
right.
I felt like,
it's,
you know,
it's very sterile. I mean,
it's
for
sterile.
good reason.
It is
right,
sterile.
Physically.
Yes, and it was just so out of control. Nothing that we did was in our control. And so little by little, I started doing art projects with my son who was in treatment and my son who was at home, his sibling. And, you know, it just brought so much joy. And then I expanded it to the families that I got to know in the hospital. And since then, it became one of those things where, wow, this really works. You know, everyone was so happy. The kids got to be kids again, and they weren't thinking of the treatment. And that simple one workshop really kept growing into what it is today.
So tell us a little bit about, from the artist's perspective, how are they bringing their either medium or what they do as artists to the children, and how are you determining what's the best project, or how they can bring what they do as a profession and a professional to the children?
So it's fascinating. The artists, as soon as they hear about this, they're like, what can I do? When can I join in? And we've had artists who are really celebrated do just exactly what they do without really toning it down or dumbing it down for the kids. The kids really rise up to the occasion. They want to do what they have brought for them. And sometimes we do have to work with them and say certain things are not okay for our kids. You know, they get a lot of numbness in their fingers because of the treatment. So we can't do very fine motor skill projects or something with tape or anything that might poke them. So we'll work with the artists to just plan and think about what they're going to bring to us, but we try and let them be as creative as possible, because that's really the difference that we make. Professional artists bringing their art and our kids really rising up and creating together. So
I think you have a great example of some of the lasting artwork that the children and artists are creating. So tell us about what you've got in your hand.
So these are virtual reality goggles. It's Google Cardboard. This art that you see is done by our kids in one of our workshops. It was a painting. And our goal has always been to empower the kids so that people look at them beyond a cancer patient. And this collaboration really does that. You know, you could just buy a plain black VR goggles or buy any one of these. And, you know, how fascinating. Our kids' art lives beyond them. You know, this child is done with her treatment. She's a survivor. But this is always going to be there. And that's what we love to do. We do a lot of these collaborations whereby, you know, someone can either buy cards that are made by our kids, and we do all kinds of art, you know, Lego, jewelry design, fashion design, acrylic painting, mask making, whatever we can get our hands on and have our kids experience, we do that. And if we can apply them to something that's more tangible, we will do that. So this is something that people can buy now, and it's great.
And support the program.
And support the program.
Because obviously you need support to keep the program going. And so how can someone like myself, who isn't an artist, but how can I get involved?
That's a question we get all the time. It's like, I'm not an artist. I can't do art. You know, we need people like you. We need people like you to help us in a lot of different ways. Spread the message. You have an expertise. We need marketing people, PR. We need managers. We need people who have any ideas. You know, we are an organization that grew from just people that wanted to do something for the families and children. Now it's grown into a bigger organization. But we are still like 85% volunteer driven. So any expertise people have, you know, maybe it's a company like Capital One, you know, took our our design and put it on the headsets. That's huge for us because every one that's sold, we get $25 as a donation. That's huge. So it's little things that really count and add up. So you can, you know, write about us, blog about us, you know, help us in organization and finance, you know. There's volunteer coordination. There's just so much an organization needs. So
I think what you're telling me too is I don't have to necessarily have the answer, but I can go to your website and just sort of see the different things that you're doing, and maybe something will come up and go, I could do that. I can sit. Whether or not I'm sitting at bedside and helping children with a project, or whether I've got my company involved, or whether I'm helping to volunteer and spread the word for you, or even writing a check.
Absolutely.
And giving to the organization.
Check says all nonprofits love them, but I think for a nonprofit to keep going and sustain, you need more than just money. It's the outreach and, you know, communications. Absolutely.
And specifically, you have an Art Heals program. So give us a little bit more background on that.
So the whole reason the word healing came into our being is I personally feel that art should become part of the treatment cycle. When a child is diagnosed, every focus is on getting rid of the cancer. There's nothing else talked about what happens to the child while they are in treatment, or to the sibling, or to the family. And that's how the whole healing treatment came out. It's like we need to think about the child as a whole, not just as a cancer patient. Because even with children who are done with their treatment, they have a lot of side effects. They sometimes relapse. And that's where, you know, healing comes in. It's like, how do we as a society heal? And arts is a form of healing, whether it's writing, drawing, dancing, music, painting. So that's where, you know, healing comes in our program.
So what hospitals do you work with, or where do you reach most of the children?
So our program started at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. That's where my son was diagnosed. And we go in the waiting room, outpatient waiting room over there, and we do art while the families are waiting for their treatment, because they're waiting a lot.
They are.
And we are starting a pilot program at UCSF, Benioff, at Mission Bay from January. And that's a 16-week pilot where we are going to do the same thing. We're going to go in on a weekly basis and do art with families in the outpatient waiting room. And this program is fascinating because this is a joint plan with the hospital. So we are working with the nurse, with the art therapist, with Child Life, because everyone's trying to solve this problem. It's like, how do we think about the families who are constantly waiting, whether it's new patients or patients who have to keep coming back for, you know, just the regular treatment, or it's a well visit, you're always waiting. So this is something that we are working on together to see how can we assess and make it a valuable program, so that there's real funding for it and not just, you know, money coming from here and there. We really want hospitals to start thinking about it.
To commit to it.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there's tons of studies coming out now where we want seniors to be engaged in art projects because of what it does in keeping your mind engaged and focused. And so I'm thinking it's the same theory with children, right? And just to get their minds off of what is about to happen, and even the families engaged, so that everybody is doing something together, right? Because once the child goes in for treatment, they're basically on their own. That's happening to the child, and the family feels very disconnected. But this is something that brings them all together.
And that's our biggest thing. That's why we call it the care circle and the siblings, because it's the aunt and the uncle and the grandparents. All of these people are affected when this one child is in treatment. And so what they do with us really brings them all together, even if it's for a moment. You know, something that people always say that, you know, but it's not research, you should be focusing on the research. Will stop the cancer in its tracks, but that will come, and we hope that that will come. But what we try to do is think about the families that are already in the treatment cycle and bring them all together through hope, and art is hope.
Well, thank you so much, Purvi. We are out of time, but I really hope that our viewers will get onto your website, learn more about the program, get involved. donate. And or if you do have and hear about a child that is going through cancer treatments at these centers, or even if it's not one of the centers you're involved in, someone bring it to that hospital and say this program exists, and let's bring it to our community as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for bringing this forward, and I'm very excited for all of your success
Thank
and
you.
your future success. Thanks so much for joining us on Penn Voice. We'll see you next time.